Hello and welcome to the Road Ahead podcast. I'm your host, Josh Foster. I am joined today by the one, the only Darren, who is the chairman of the Leighton Buzzard Road Cycling Club. Darren, thanks for coming on the podcast.
My absolute pleasure and good afternoon.
Thank you. And just give us a little bit of an overview about Leighton Buzzard Club, how it started, your involvement, how long you've been chairman, that sort of thing.
Well, the club started in 2011 by Carl Keane. He was a local cyclist and he got together with a few other guys at the local pub. Not the Black Lion, which is our local pub that we normally stop in, but the Bottom Bell in Leighton Buzzard in Bedfordshire. And they decided to form a cycling club, more of a race team than a cycling club. There's quite a few of them raced in local crits and at the Bowl in Milton Keynes, and they just felt that there was the opportunity to get together. But then from that, it grew into a sort of proper cycling club with anything. I think we range of anything between sort of 60 to 90 members. I think 100 is our top that we've ever had during COVID. We have 3 to 4 regular rides on a Sunday of all different abilities, from sort of 20 miles per hour up down to 10, 12 miles per hour average on a ride, and distances anything from sort of 25 miles up to 60, sort of 100k. So, regular with that. I joined the club about 8 years ago. I've been cycling since I was about 6, 7, 8 years old, always on a bike, had a road bike back in the day when I was a kid, used to ride to school, and just felt it was an opportunity to get back into a hobby that I'd always enjoyed.
Brilliant. So what have been the challenges recently? You mentioned about there being like a peak membership around COVID time. What have been the challenges more recently? A lot of the press that people would have been reading in cycling news is like bike shops trouble or cycling industry trouble. But what's it been like in the club? What have been the challenges for actually being a BC club?
I think people just, there's always the time, having the time to come out and do a ride. Rides are very sociable on a Sunday. The idea is that you ride to a cafe, you have a coffee and a cake, and you come back, and then we end up at the pub. But I think the time is one thing with the family, but cost as well, because obviously bikes are a lot more expensive, certainly at the top end with road bikes. We're not precious. Anyone can come along with any kind of road bike. We are a road club. And come along and ride. We start them off maybe at a lower speed, and they move their way up into different and longer and faster rides as and when they want to. But I think, going back to your question, it's really, I think, time, family, commitment, money, all of those things are really get in the way. And people have a lot of things, busy work, home lives, and other hobbies as well that they want to pursue. But we try and aim to be flexible as a club. And also in the summer, we're just going to start now. Where are we? We're talking at the beginning of April 2025, and we're just going to start doing summer evening rides as well. When the days are a bit longer, and get people out to ride during the week as well.
Oh, fantastic. So I think my first ride with the club, because Leighton Buzzard was the first club I ever joined, was the BBB in the week.
Okay.
Or the BBBB.
BBBB, yeah.
BBBB.
Yes.
Yeah. Lots
of Bs.
Yeah. Put in the comments below what you think that many Bs stands for, and maybe we'll reveal it at the end. What have been... as a club, do you actively look for new members? Do you actively think, we're a club of 60, we want to be a club of 120?
We try to. I don't think I wouldn't say actively. I think it grows holistically by one person telling another, and so on and so forth. But we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, Twitter, all the social media there. We put stuff out, people see it. We have local bike shops like yourself that tell us, about people that want to ride locally, maybe that live over in our direction. So we get that. We also race cyclocross in the club, mountain biking. So we do some off-road as well for people that want to do that. And I think you just, as I said, you get that natural osmosis of people seeing someone out riding, asking them, other local bike shops tell us about, people that want to join, and we always try and encourage them.
Do you get people joining for different reasons? So I'm going to pick on him because he's been doing really well recently. Archie, because he's been all over the club's Instagram page. Team Green LBRCC?
Yes.
Team Green, yeah, give them a follow. Archie's been storming around, winning all sorts of things, but he's very clearly racing.
Yeah.
What's the balance in the club between people that want to race, people that want to enjoy a club ride, or people that are just starting to ride?
Well, club rides are never racing. That's the first thing. Racing we do, we encourage it. We race with cyclocross, and as you know, I've run a cyclocross event for British cycling in the Central Cyclocross League. And we've done it at the club for about 7 or 8 years now. Mm-hmm. So we do encourage it, but there's a time and a place for everything. Club rides are social, they're not for racing. We encourage people maybe to get together during the week or at the weekend. And quite often you will find that there's little relationships that build within the club, and people get together on rides of similar sort of style and speed, etc., and go out during the week and do more racing, etc., and then they get encouraged. We actively promote local cycling. Obviously we've got Milton Keynes Bowl where there's Saturday and summer weekly racing that goes on. There's the Bovingdon Bomber over in Bovingdon in Hertfordshire, which is not that far away. There's Hitchin. So, we actively encourage it and post things. We have timed trials locally. So we advertise. If any other clubs are doing it, we advertise it on our social media.
Thanks. And so racing, club members, and you mentioned how Carl and a few people right at the beginning in the Golden Bell had this idea of a cycling club to race and all the rest of it. So you've touched on it a little bit, but how do you feel like being a member of the club has evolved over the years?
I think people do like to be part of a club, any club or organisation, not just cycling, but certainly in our club, we have quite a laid back way of dealing with things. And we haven't sort of had any sort of real incidences or challenges with running the club over the past few years. I mean, certainly since I took over as secretary about 6 years ago during COVID, and then subsequently I'm now chairman, we've got a smaller committee. They used to have like 10 people on the committee. We've now just got 5 of us. We have the chairman, the secretary. We've got a ride lead secretary who posts all the weekly rides and routes. We've got a proper route library for people to use. So if they want to ride outside of club rides, they can have a look at it. And there's links to rides and cafes, Strava and Garmin routes. And then we've got a treasurer who looks after our money, and the fee's very low at £26 a year, and it just pays for sort of the general running of the club and insurances and the other events that we have during the year. And we try and be social. We have a summer normally event where we all go out for a ride and then come back to our clubhouse, the Black Lion. And they're super friendly and really invite us all in, as you may well have remembered yourself. Yep. And we try and have a great social atmosphere as well to bring people together off the bike, and I think that's as important as on the bike as well. We also have been to the velodrome at Lee Valley where we've learnt sort of riding on the track. So we try and do other events as well and incorporate and get people involved.
So it started off almost as just guys that wanted to race and guys that wanted to ride their bikes together, and now you've got all of this subsequent infrastructure, committee structure. I bumped into Emma the other day. Am I right in thinking there's a women's secretary for the club now as well?
Great news that Emma Bland has, who's the wife of one of our real active riders, has agreed to be our women's officer. British Cycling call it a women's officer.
Right.
And we want to get more women in the club. I think we've got about 8. And so, 8 out of 80 is not a huge amount. It's probably better than some clubs, but worse than quite a few others. But we want to try and improve that, and we also want to. With our last women's officer, she was also doing rides for the wives and partners of club riders separately. Just shorter local rides, just to get people back out on bikes and encourage them, because we're facing a crisis in the NHS with people not being able to be active all the time. So I think if we can get more people on bikes and more people active, that would be a great thing to be able to do.
You touched briefly on the cyclocross, and we talked about Emma being the women's officer. One of the things that I've seen come up at these cross races is there's a massive junior movement going on.
Right, absolutely.
How's Leighton taking that on? I know Archie's sort of come up being one of the younger members that I know of, but and there was Nathan before.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was just a smidge too old to be a junior. But
yeah.
How do you manage juniors? How do you encourage younger people in?
Well, I mean, we don't actually. Our club has only recently sort of been able to take junior members in, because British Cycling, you have to have a DBS check, you have to have done safeguarding. So to be able to allow younger riders in, there's a bit more complexity, cost and time behind it. So both Nathan, when he was riding, he originally started out coming just with his dad, and then he was all of a sudden, then he was 18, and so that was fine. With younger members, we do have to have proper safeguarding and proper rules in place with British Cycling to be able to get them in. We're looking at the potential of working with other local clubs to do the safeguarding, etc., and encourage more younger people to it. You've got to capture them at the right time. The biggest challenge is that obviously parents need to be involved. Then they've got schooling, etc., and they're coming into their prime, maybe 15, 16, 17 and upwards, when their physicality and being able to ride along with adults or race becomes more important. The younger ones, in terms of sort of maybe what you would call like 5 upwards, we haven't ever had anyone come to us and ask us about that. So we haven't really been involved with that, and it's not something we necessarily are set up for, but we would certainly. We've got Buzz Cycles in the town, which I'm involved with as well, who do lots of sort of advocacy work and work with of all ages. We try and filter those people out to another club or somewhere locally where they could get the same experience.
So you've worked with like the other clubs that are doing the cross races as well, to put that on. Okay.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's Central Cyclocross League, and there's, I would think, probably upwards of 30 different clubs and independent riders that come along and ride cyclocross. There's a summer season which goes sort of July to August, and then the winter season starts normally towards the end of September and goes up until the end of the year, and there's normally something like a dozen races.
Yeah. No, they were. I attended them as pro cycle.
Yes.
They were really, really good to watch, and to be in a, what do you call it, an event kiosk, something like that. Just be there and be present at the races, because there's a really good atmosphere.
They are a fantastic opportunity for all ages, from 5 years old, and we have riders of 70, 75 years old. So I think all ages. It's an enclosed environment, normally in sort of like a field or a park or something like that. You're not on the road tangling with cars or anything. You're riding around a grass track. It can get quite muddy. We don't get many broken bones, but we do get a lot of happy people. Yeah.
And Belgian beer and chips and coffee. For those, that might be in a community that don't have a cycling club, I'm going to struggle to find an example because there are loads all over the place. But when I was in Brighton, the clubs got so big that they seemed to split off a little bit.
Yeah.
So for communities that would be looking to start their own clubs, that would be looking to have the infrastructure and the knowledge, and are just a bit unsure of the first steps to dive in, because you can go with, you need you and a couple of mates and you got a club. But for a BC registered club, because that does come with paying for insurances and some other cover, legal cover, guidance, that sort of thing. What would be the first steps that you would recommend to a community, individual or individuals, to start their club?
I think certainly the BC route, or speaking maybe to Cycling UK, is the way to go. They've got lots of great information and advice. I mean, I think from a legal point of view, you really need to be involved with one of the big organisations. I mean, and British Cycling, I think, is probably the default, because they know how a club should be run. You know, there's nothing to stop 2 or 3, friends going out on a ride. That's just people riding a bike, isn't it? If you want more structure to it, then, British Cycling or Cycling UK do have the ability to sort of help you out that, and they'll get you going for nothing, kind of thing. You'll get the costs later as your club would expand, but then certainly there's lots of people in the cycling community that are always happy to help. I've regularly sort of get together with British Cycling and other chairmen and secretaries and talk about how we can make things better, how we can make cycling better for our clubs and the community in general.
No, that's I learned something there. That's good to know. I didn't know that happened, and that would have been one of my questions.
There you go.
So thank you. I'm going to pivot a little bit now towards, still on the topic of clubs, but in terms of support in the community from bike shops. Now, I know that Ashley, who runs Dorvix, has been offering Leighton Buzzard Club a discount.
Yeah.
I think it's a flat discount for however long it's been since he took over.
Yeah.
And Lavello in Berkhamsted do the same for the Berkhamsted Club, and I believe other shops do the same.
Yeah, Pedal Works in Dunstable as well, and there's others around that try and help out the local clubs. I mean, you don't have to be a club member, but specifically we do try and sort of build relationships with people like yourself, Pedal Works, Dorvix, and other local bike shops. We would rather support the local bike shop. It's nice to have a discount, and but I don't think it's what's going to make people go to a local bike shop. I think we like the fact that we feel that there's a much better service. You're looked after by the person that's running it, so they've got a vested interest in it, and they want to give you a good service and do the best job possible. And I think their enthusiasm of cycling as well, and they've normally been cyclists as well, so they understand what the cyclist is looking for and what they want.
Do you think there's any gaps? So they offer the discount. They might offer, I know they ran a maintenance course for the Triathlon Club recently.
Yeah.
And that's something I see, maintenance evenings are something that is run.
Yeah.
In terms of gaps in where, because shops are a core of the community.
Yeah.
And then the cycling club is the community, and then there's the Buzz Cycles element that you have in Leighton as well, which is the advocacy.
Yeah.
So you've got a really nice mix there. But what would you, if you had a blank sheet of paper, not necessarily a blank check, but what would be the gaps you would fill in from the support from the bike shop side as to where they're missing the mark a little bit?
I think it's a difficult one for bike shops because, they've got to balance off making a profit and paying for the staff, etc., and all their infrastructure, versus sort of being able to support the local riders and bike shop. I mean, discounts are one thing, as I said, but I think it's just having the ability to sort of maybe just turn up ad hoc and say, I've got a spoke missing, or my chain's broke, or I've got a puncture, and then being able to help you, without really having a huge amount of cost to it apart from the parts. I think things like that go quite a long way. If someone doing a favour, then the benefit, seen by the cyclist, they will tell someone else. And I think you can, businesses could be grown in that way. I don't know that, people are looking for a free handout or anything like that. But I think having demo bikes is always good for a bike shop, if they sell bikes as well, having a range of parts, but, being there for a listening ear and giving sort of free advice if it's needed.
Do you think there are any services on top of what's offered that you'd like to see from your local bike shops? Previous episodes, we've looked at bike fitting. I've heard some rumours of consultations on custom bike builds.
Okay.
So you're talking, you're building a dream bike. Someone may charge you or just sit down with you for your dream bike built and spec it for you. And then everything from maintenance evenings to trainings. Do you think there's any additional service that you would want to see on the menu at your local bike shop, or like even on my menu, which is in the corner, tucked away that you can't see? What's missing? What would you like to see?
I don't know. I think most of them are fairly comprehensive in what they offer. It's difficult to find a gap, but I mean, a lot of bike shops and businesses have tried lots of different things. I think bike fitting is definitely, something. As I said, bike hire or a loan, so you can have a sort of feel of a bike just to see what it's like before you actually buy. Because let's face it, if you're buying a high-end bike, you could be paying £2,000 or £3,000.
Yeah.
So you'd want to make sure that what you're going to buy is really going to suit you and your needs, etc. And if you're not a person that knows a lot about bikes, then you really want to feel confident that you're dealing with someone. I think maintenance evenings are good. We've got one coming up on the 12th of April 2025, which we're providing free. Again, it's another thing as a club that we're doing for people, and it's just the nuts and bolts of it. And I think people being at the side of the road, being able to maybe just put their chain back on, not fix it, or repair a puncture, or just understand the mechanics of their bike a bit more so they can get themselves home.
Yeah. Do you think there's anything that club riders, like on the flip side, is there anything that club riders are missing about the advantages of their local bike shop and what they could be learning from the local bike shop?
I think maybe go in there and have a chat with them and see what services that they offer, because it's not just about servicing a bike. It might be how do I what about a bike box because I need to take my bike abroad, or what different things, or what spares might I need, how many inner tubes do you think I should have? Do I need a set of a puncture repair kit? Not that many people do repair a puncture these days, but is there anything that I need in my saddle bag? And I think, those kind of things can go quite a long way. Yeah.
So just asking the questions of what can I do?
Yeah. No, definitely.
And I've got most local bike shops that I've been into, independent local bike shops, you walk in, you ask a question, they're patient, they're kind, and they're willing to give you, as you say, the nuts and bolts, the birds and the bees. They're willing to walk you through it in a non-condescending, quite approachable way.
Absolutely.
You just need to not be a dick when you walk in and demand it.
Yeah. I think most people are, and most bike shops understand that, if someone turns up in a stress situation with a bike with something wrong with it, they might be on their way somewhere, so they need some help. And I think it's just being able to give that. It's a challenge. It must be a challenge for, these smaller bike shops that aren't part of any massive group to be able to provide a brilliant service. But, most of them do.
Well, the service is the only thing they have to differentiate themselves. It's the same parts. It's the same cost, more or less. You can look on the big orange bike shop or the big green bike shop, and they've got their service list and their service requirements, and they'll be similarly priced to what I'm offering or what Dorvix is offering or what Pedalworks is offering. But the differentiation, I suppose, as you've touched on, is that personal relationship that you have with your local bike shop owner. When you walk in, you're dealing with Ashley, and he's there at the counter. He's the owner.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, there are other things, just thinking while we're talking, is, if you're not able, if your bike's not working, it's not like you can cycle it to your local bike shop. So do they offer a pickup service?
Yeah.
Are they able to drop it off? Do they operate in hours outside the normal 9 to 5 to be able to give the cyclist a bit more flexibility? I think in this busy sort of world that we live in, I think, the opportunity is there for having that more flexible sort of service, so that people can come to you outside their sort of normal hours.
No, that's a good point. But about the extra conditions as well. So there's the extra conditions on individuals as a person. So you're working a corporate job, you're in an office, you don't have time to get into town. There's also additional requirements, I think, on the employer of the bike, like the bike shop employer, to their staff. And I think the mechanic wage is going up, the cost of parts is going up. How do you think that affects people getting into the sport? I think the answer is it's not a good thing. The price is going up and not a good thing.
Definitely.
There's certainly lots of variety now. There's 1,000,001 bike brands. What do you think about that?
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people could consider is seeing if their employer does a cycle to work scheme and then using that cycle to work scheme with their local bike shop to get a bike, to get them active, to get an up-to-date bike, and then they can have the full experience of buying a bike, saving some national insurance on it, going into their local bike shop, getting a brand new bike that's nice and shiny and starting, from scratch, so they know exactly where they are. And I think, again, that's another thing that local bike shops could encourage, if they're able to do it, if they sell bikes, that they're able to do it. It's then, I think, developing with your bike rider and sort of building that relationship so that they come back to you for their service and parts, and if they've got other family members that want bikes, that they can do that as well.
No, okay. A little bit of a topic change again. So you've touched on previously the cyclocross, the Central Cyclocross and your involvement with that. It's something I've been really curious on. Is what is your toolbox? What do you have in your toolbox to set that up? Because we were there the day before, but you'd been there previously as well. You'd had to pick up the trailer with the stakes in to lay out the course. You'd had to liaise with the vendors, where they were parking. You'd had to liaise with was it the zoo that mowed it down? So you had all of these different pieces. But you've run it successfully year after year for the last, do you say 8 years?
Yeah.
You've run it successfully for the last 8 years. It's still going. It was really popular. People were turning up the day before to look at the course and to check it out. So it's clearly an event that's had a good deal of success. What's in your toolkit, Darren?
Well, you're planning a year ahead almost. You're thinking about, if we're going back to the same venue, can we get the venue where we have the Whipsnade Cross, or what we call Zoocross? It's right next to Whipsnade Zoo on the top of Bison Hill. And, you've got to think, are they happy for us to use the venue? We were very lucky that the venue cost for us was nothing. We made a donation to the zoo because the zoo effectively owned the land in conjunction with the parish council. You've then got to think, what's the course design like? And will that be happy? Okay for British cycling. You have to do a health and safety document for British cycling, and the commissaires who turn up to run the event from British cycling on the day need to overlook that. Obviously, as you say, you've got to go up to the site before. You can't ride some sites. We have to have ours mowed in certain places as well, because it's makes it too difficult to ride. We have 2 courses, one for the children and one for the adults, so they can be ridden at separate times. So it really, as I said, it starts a year ahead. Then you need helpers from the clubs. We, for the last couple of years, we've done it in conjunction with Icknield Road Club, who are local to us in Dunstable, Leighton area. And it's about bodies. You need a reasonable amount of bodies on the day and the couple of days before just to organise everything. You've got toilets, you've got catering that people want, you've got coffee, you've got you came along to give mechanical support. So there's all of this and all of these things. There's an expectation from the person who comes to ride that even if they're paying a very small fee to come and ride, for a child it's 10, 11, 12 pounds, and for an adult 18 pounds, that they're getting something for their money. And most of that money goes either back to British Cycling to pay for commissaires and toilets, etc., and everything. We've made no profit. We haven't made a loss for the last sort of 5 years. We don't really do it to make a profit, but there is an inherent cost, and most of the cost is people's time.
So it's the entire thing's run at cost, other than the money going to British. So commissaires are paid individuals?
They just get paid for their travelling time, and we buy them lunch. Okay,
well, that seems like a pretty good deal.
But, I mean, they're volunteers as well. They don't get paid for what they do. It's a voluntary position.
You've done your comm training?
Yeah, I'm an advanced marshal, so I mean I can stand for road rides. I haven't done the commissaire stuff for cyclocross, but it's very similar. So marshalling is about sort of stopping the traffic on a road, on a physical road ride where they're actually out on the road.
Okay, and the commissary is judging, are they breaking the rules, dropping the flag, neutralising the race if need be, health and safety.
Yeah, so they basically run the whole event. You know, they get everyone lined up on the start line in the right categories. You know, children, adults, etc. They start the race. They see how many laps are going on. Obviously, as you said, wave the flag at the start and at the end. You know, they deal with any problems. There's first aid on site as well, so that we've got to liaise with them as well. And obviously, but they're running the event.
Okay. In terms of fundraising for something like that, you mentioned the membership fee for the Leighton Buzzard Club is £26 a year?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm assuming it's less for juniors and then lifetime memberships.
I think I think anyone under 18, it's £1.
Oh, okay. Well, it's well and truly worth signing up because you get full third-party liability insurance. Yeah. If I can remember, £26 a month funding. So you've obviously got between 60 and 100 at your peak.
Yeah.
Not all of that money can go into Zoocross.
Yeah.
So do you do any additional fundraising? You said Icknield Road Club come along as well.
No, I mean we did no fundraising for that. We just used, you know, we outlay money that's owned by the club, and then we get back from British Cycling the entry fees less some, you know, what they take away for that. We also have to pay the Central League, and that pays for the use of all the stakes and all the other equipment that they have in the trailer, which you were saying. Yeah. Again, we need to collect that, and that comes from race to race. But in terms of money, no, it's not a money-making exercise. You know, we haven't yet, touch wood, made a loss. We've been pretty close. But we also... another one of my hats is that I'm also on the Leighton Linslade District Sports Council, and we've very luckily been able to get some funding, a couple of £100 every year that we've done cyclocross from them to help with the event because they want to encourage local sport.
So there are local clubs out there that I know do not do events. They don't have the committee structure, they don't have the funding capacity. So what sort of, without being rude or intrusive, how much does it cost to put on a race? Like you're running it at cost. How much money do you need to channel into the hire?
Somewhere between £3,500 and £4,000 money comes in and out the bank.
Okay.
And that, I mean, you know, if you were to have 3-4 portaloos, that's going to cost you £600 to £800.
Wow.
I know.
Just for a toilet?
Just for a toilet.
Well, I suppose they've got to empty it.
You've got to have them. You know, you can't not. Well, you've got to have a toilet facility, and we're in just the middle of a common, a field. Yeah. So there's nothing there. There are no facilities. So everything's got to be wheeled in. But as I said, you know, money just comes in and out the club. You know, so riders' money is not used for that. We do use it for that, but we also use the money in the club for funding things like a summer party, a winter party. We went, as I said, we subsidise things like riding the velodrome, and then other things that come up, you know. So we own bike boxes in the club. We've got washers for cyclocross, cycle washers, and just other equipment just to generally be able to sort of run. But it's on a very low level. It's nothing significant, huge costs, etc. You know, we like to spend the money that's in the club account. Members are paying it in for a reason. Does it
help new members, do you think? So one of the things I've seen in the club group on Facebook is that you have a watt bike. Yeah. And that can be, I remember, you know, speccing them for the gym at my last company. And understanding that they are something that can really help your training and really help you develop. Do you think those are things that attract people into the club, or do you think they're just things that people have as an extra bonus when they come in?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's like bike boxes. I mean, we use these kind of things, just they're facilities that people, you know, would like to be able to use or have the use of, but without actually buying a whole sort of piece of equipment themselves. So I think these kind of things there are just to make life easier for club riders if they want to, although most people don't want a watt bike in their house.
No, it's quite cumbersome to move around.
Yes. You know, and we've got, again, you know, we've got a very social club. People sort of, as you on our Facebook page that we've got, you know, we see people selling or giving equipment away to each other quite regularly, things like turbo trainers and other bits of equipment, just to sort of keep people going. And especially if someone's, you know, had a fall off the bike and they can't ride on the road or don't want to, you know, there's people loaning equipment and there's specifically things like turbo trainers or the watt bikes around.
And they're big investments as well. Your basic drive on, wheel on, direct drive turbo trainers, £300-400.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Which for some people getting into it, if they've gone to Decathlon and bought their first bike, you know, B-twins are very good. But if they've gone there, that's as much as the bike itself. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know, cycling is not, unfortunately, not a poor man's sport, you know, especially if you get into it and you start them, you know, putting a lot of money into it and you've got more than one bike and so on and so forth. So we did invest in a club bike, but it didn't seem to be super popular, to be honest with you, so we didn't carry on with that. We've tried various different things over the years, but we think that we're fairly happy as a committee that we keep it tight and small as a committee. We keep our costs down, but, you know, we're not frightened of spending a bit of money to make life better for people at the club. No, that's a really positive sentiment, and I think that's incredibly responsible with the money. It's not our money at the end of the day, it's club members' money. So, you know, we need to make sure, and part of any club, you know, if people are thinking of starting a club is, if you're involved with British cycling, for instance, you've got to have an annual general meeting every year. You've got to have a constitution, which British cycling can give you. You've got to vote on it every year. If you're having a committee, you've got to keep your members in there. You've got to report to them what is going on. So, and we like to do that on a regular basis so that people know and they're involved and, you know, they've got a buy-in. What have been some of the great successes of the club? So you've touched on like all this equipment that you've managed to buy in, and that's made people's lives easier. If they've had an injury, they've still been able to ride because they can ride indoors. And I think, you know, I went to a couple of different clubs after Leighton Buzzard and it all felt a bit strange. I went to one in Cambridge and everyone left at the end of the ride. I was like, are we not going to the pub? Yeah. And it was bizarre because I was used to sitting down with like you or Nick, Adam, like whoever it might have been. My mentality was that you finish the ride, you go to the pub or you go to a cafe or there's some sort of social aspect after. So, yeah, I think I've just listed one of the great successes of the club. But from your side, what have been the great successes that you've seen from the Leighton Buzzard Club? I think keeping it social. I think keeping people engaged, having a social part of it. We very much encourage people to get together and talk about their ride after their ride, you know, because that's what, you know, if you're a hobbyist on something, you don't normally just do it, whether it be cycling or making, you know, balsa wood planes or whatever it is, you know, flying kites. You want to go back and talk about it afterwards, and that's what we encourage people to do. And I think that's where you also learn things about cycling, you know, because people that are more experienced, I've learned from them. When I came back into cycling and joined the club, the likes of Carl Keane said to me, the best way to set up your bike is this, you know, what kind of shoes shall I buy? Well, you should buy this. And, you know, you don't have to go to the pub and, you know, have lots of revelry. It can just be a chat and a drink, and a lot of people just come back for a drink and just sort of decompress from the ride and just enjoy that. And again, same with our midweek rides when we start them. A lot of people like to go for a drink afterwards or stay for a chat. You don't have to have a drink, but just come back to our clubhouse, the Black Lion and Leighton Buzzard, and just, you know, just talk about what's gone on. Where did the link with the Black Lion start? Because for as long as I can remember the club, because I think I joined the club around the time that I worked for Dorvigs and worked for Ashley. Okay. 2018, maybe. Where did the link with the Black Lion come? I think almost back to the beginning. The sort of founders of the club always wanted to have a social side to it. The great thing with the Black Lion for us is that it's an old coaching inn, so they've got some doors that they can open. They're happy for us to bring our bikes in. You know, I mean, in the height of summer, we've had 40 bikes
in the Black Lion, and 40 of us sitting there having a drink afterwards. And we've had barbecues there, we've had summer events, and they're always happy to host us. And I think, again, it's like any sort of community thing. If you're able to build a community, then people will want to come along and be involved. And, that we try and sort of get that community spirit and feel that it's not just about riding, it's about a club. And when you say club, it should be about something that's for the community.
That's really nice. It's sort of, this is a bit of a juxtaposition, but I was wondering how do you do, people's personalities clash? It's inevitable. How do you deal with strife in the club? Because you're on the committee, and it's been very rare, but on odd club rides, all up and down the country, you may see people just disagree with each other slightly. How do you manage that within the club? Do you need to manage that within the club? Is part of your responsibility as chairman, part of that safeguarding?
I mean, when they're adults, I think they need to be able to just get on with things.
Yeah.
We provide all the basis for riding, the route, etc. 90% of sort of falling outs is people not taking a turn on the front when you're doing a long ride. I know you're laughing about that because that's the way.
Yeah.
Or people not liking the route, people not liking the coffee stop. We can only do so much for individuals to be able to come along and do that. I mean, people just have to be adults and responsible. And we've literally only had, in the sort of 7, 8, 9 years that I've been involved with the club on the committee, we've only had a couple of incidences, and it's literally just where people have not seen eye to eye over things, and sometimes people just have a bad day, but they've always been resolved amicably, and we've never in the whole time that I've been in the club had to sort of to ask someone to leave.
No, that's really good. I didn't mean to touch on something so negative. I just thought it would be interesting to take the perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because we hear a lot of the positives, but handling the negatives, I think, can make, the same with people in their career, businesses, how you handle the negatives can be game changing. You mentioned cafe stops and ride leads, and we talked on recruitment about individual riders, but what about volunteers? You said you need bodies for races, but you also need bodies for your committee and for people to step up and lead a ride. What are the requirements to be a ride lead? How do you encourage people to, or not necessarily encourage people, but how do you incentivize people to volunteer?
I don't think there's any qualifications, to be honest with you, and that's really what we want to say, and we say to club members all the time, because ultimately everyone's got some kind of device on their bike with GPS and a map on it.
Yeah.
Everyone downloads the route, or most people do. So everyone knows what direction they're going. So a ride lead is technically not always the person who's leading the ride, but it's maybe just someone who's a little bit more responsible, who understands about, certainly with rides, is keeping the ride tight and together, not to upset other road users. Because, I mean, let's face it, that's the biggest challenge when you're on the road is dealing with other road users. And I'm not just talking about cars and other bike users, horses, because obviously a lot of where we're riding in Herts, Beds and Bucks, it's countryside, so you come across a multitude of different types of vehicles, tractors, farm machinery, etc. So I think it's just knowing of riding in a positive way all together and helping out your fellow riders so that everyone gets a good ride and a good experience.
With the good experience thing, I think there's been a lot of people that will have gone on a club ride, very new to it, and got dropped.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's not the case with Leighton Buzzard because you start people with G4, but for the people listening, for the people watching, could you walk me through what G4 is and why it exists?
Well, we've got normally, G4 is sort of like a starter ride where you would come along, and we're also doing this in conjunction with Buzz Cycles as well, that it's a ride where you can come along, try and find your feet with your bike. We are a road club, so typically we're on road bikes. We have had people along on hybrids and mountain bikes, and quite often we'll just say to them, come along, but typically if you then want to get a bit more experience, you're really going to need a road bike, and go and see your local bike shop. But the idea really is that it's just a starting point for a person maybe who's coming back to cycling or new to it. And as I said, we work again with Buzz Cycles for people that maybe are that new. They don't even want to ride in a group. They just want to ride with 2 or 3 people. And it's just a case of where do you get to? You would then look at the other groups, and I'm not saying you go up to it or down with it, because I've ridden on every group, depending on how I feel on the day or the day before. You know, if you've had a busy weekend, you might be a bit tired. You go, oh, I'm just going to ride with G3 is the next one, or G2 or G1. And the idea of all of them is 4 is like a shorter distance, slower ride. And then as you move up, G3, slightly longer distance, faster, 2, and then 1. And then if you get to that point, you might want to think about going racing somewhere.
Yeah. No, I think I remember, I think it was Bob Hamilton that took my G4 ride way back when.
Well, I mean, while we're on that, and depending on obviously when people watch this, Bob Hamilton unfortunately passed away last year. He was a great advocate for cycling, and if you can have people in that like in your club, and he'd ridden for 30 years, he'd been with the club for about 10 years. He used to take any new rider under his wing. You know, he would take them out on a ride, show them the coffee stops, and there's so many people, and it's a very emotional time for us at the club. And we've actually got on the 13th of April 2025, we've got a memorial ride, reliability ride for him, 84 miles or 84k, because he died when he was 84. So we're going to do it every year because he was a real advocate, and we made him an honorary member of the club.
Oh, fantastic. And when, so
13th of April.
13th of April,
yeah.
Where does it start from?
It's going to start in Leighton Buzzard as normal, outside the Propeller.
Okay, which is opposite Dorvick's.
Opposite Dorvick's, yeah.
Yeah, bottom end of the high street, just because I feel like some people may want to join along.
No, absolutely. It's open to anyone, not just club members.
Yeah, well, I do remember feeling that way when I joined. I was very nervous, never joined a club before, been sort of told, go and do this, go and do that. So I'd not done any of it before.
Yeah.
I'd done it at university. I'd not done it through school. And I think a couple of the original members, I was on the fringes of perhaps starting right when they started. But no, Bob took the first ride I did. I remember going back to the Black Line and having a pint with him, and it was,
and that's what he was like, you know, and that was the ethos of the club as well, that and still is that, we welcome anyone and all clubs. I think, there's not many clubs locally that I've been involved with, because you get to speak to a lot of people through cyclocross that don't really try and run their clubs in exactly the same way. Yeah, you're always going to get sort of people that are better at cycling and more adaptable to it, but that's why you have different rides, speeds, distances, etc., so that people can move themselves sort of to a faster ride or a slower ride, whatever they want to do, however they feel, or you might just stick with riding in the same group all the time and get familiar with your sort of fellow riders.
Yeah. What would you like to see more of in the club and from other clubs? Would you like to see more? Because perhaps grassroots racing it's something that's talked about a lot, and I'd like to see more of it. But from a club perspective, I don't think that's necessarily the ethos. It's getting bums on saddles.
No, it's definitely not the ethos. Racing is the last thing that we would sort of think about. That we really want more people cycling. And realising, as you say, that clubs are open, they're warm, friendly. We encourage. We want more younger people. We want more sort of 18 to 25s. We want more 70s down to 50s. We've got plenty of people that are sort of 25 to 45.
Yeah.
It's everyone around that, and especially more women. And, we're really hoping with Emma Bland's help, that we can encourage more ladies. I think we've had sort of up to 15, 16 members that were women in previous years, and it definitely helps having a lady as a focus in the club and for members to talk to. So I think, if you want to encourage people, you need to have a friendly committee as well.
Do you do much with the breeze side of things from Cycling UK?
We won't, but that's something that Emma can be involved with as well.
Okay. No, I was just wondering, I think because when when I was in Brighton, the numerous clubs, Brighton Mitre, and this is, I might be completely wrong, I've not got the internet open or anything, but at the time that I was there, Brighton Mitre had the most equal proportion of men to women of any club in the UK, and I think they had about 200 members.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, chapeau to them, because it must be a real challenge to sort of keep that. But I think if you've got it going, I think it just builds momentum and it will grow itself.
Do you think that clubs need to do, it's essentially a charity, isn't it? It's a charitable organisation and a club. It's a community.
We're not actually affiliated as a charity. You're almost running it as a sort of as a non-profit business. But I think you have to think that you're within a community and you have to be involved with the community.
Yeah. So you do a lot with the community. And then Buzz Cycles have stands and they do Doctor Bike, which is like a bike mechanic will be in the town centre and you can either book a slot or turn up, I think. And that's a really lovely sort of thing.
Yeah, and the idea of that is not to be taking it away from a local bike shop, but is to really have a, for people that maybe can't afford it, but then is to move them onto the local bike shop, to speak to them about local cycling as well and say, what kind of cycling would you want to do? Or I used to be a club member, and we've had many people return to cycling from the influence of Buzz Cycles, or just go to their local bike shop, or just get back on a bike.
I'm going to wrap up with a few short questions.
Okay.
Has there been anyone join the club that you would never have expected? Like someone that was like a die-hard BMW driving, hates cyclists, all of a sudden discovers road cycling?
Plenty. I mean, it's weird that, there are lots of instances of people who turn up and you think, they'll probably last a week, and they're still riding 5 years later.
Amazing. Well, I've certainly seen transformations of people coming into the club, and their first bike might have been, they might have bought it from Halfords, they might have bought it from Decathlon, wherever it was, and they just started, and now all of a sudden they're doing holidays to Mallorca and going out.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, and I think the thing is people then, it's difficult sometimes to get over to people the physical and mental benefits of riding a bike. I mean, if you have a busy day at work, sometimes to be able to jump on your bike and just go out into the countryside and just have a ride, even if it's just a few miles, can do wonders for your health and your mental health and physical health.
So your advice to any general population would be jump on a bike, just feel the benefit.
Just get moving.
Yeah. Just for the viewers, so they've got a bit of background on you, what are you currently riding? What's your current bike?
I've got a Basso, which is an Italian brand, made in Italy, a Basso Venta, really nice super light bike, some Hope wheels on it, lovely bike, really love it, super light, super stiff and great as on a sunny day.
What would you like to see more of from your local authority? Because the local authority ties in a lot with the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Contentious topic, potholes. We're going through a claim with Buckinghamshire Council at the moment, not for my bike, but for my car. What would you like to see more of from either Leighton Linslade Town Council or Bedfordshire Council, specifically to you and the Leighton Buzzard Club, to support club riding, but also to support, just little Timmy riding to school?
I mean, I think it's you've hit the nail on the head. It's infrastructure, but then that's down to money, and their budget is obviously very tied. I mean, would someone paying council tax, which some goes to the local council, pay a few more pounds to be able to get more people on a bike? I think we're quite lucky in Leighton Buzzard that we've got a fairly good infrastructure to be able to cycle around the town, and we can link up to Milton Keynes as well, which is great. That money's got to come from somewhere. God knows how it would come from, where it's going to come from. But I think someone like Buzz Cycles, which I'm sort of involved with as well, they're really looking at planning. Every time a planning permission comes in for houses or other developments, they really do look at it from the perspective of getting to the local supermarket from your home without sort of touching the road, maybe.
The latest one's a Lidl, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a Lidl
they're trying to get bike
very
park
close to where I live, and they, we've commented on things like they've only got like 2 places to park a bike.
Yeah,
the getting in and out of the supermarket is not super easy. It doesn't, their ideas don't connect up with the rest of the infrastructure. So obviously they're thinking about, we can just put like a couple of bike racks in and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
But it's just making a very joined up approach, which is what we're aiming always to do.
Do you think Buzz Cycles could be a template for other towns? Do you think every town should have a Buzz Cycles?
Yeah, I think it's important, and we work with them as well as the local club, as we do try to with the council as well.
No, I am glad. Like, having grown up in Leighton Buzzard, I'm glad that they existed.
Yeah,
because I think Tom Littlehales walked me through some of it.
Yes,
the cycling infrastructure on the new build housing out towards the A5. And I think Sandhills as well, to an extent. The newer houses, they've almost linked up in a wheel.
Yes, they've got the green wheel.
Spokes. Yeah. That's it, green wheel.
Yeah, so that's a really good way of sort of putting a plan together and being able to. It doesn't all connect fantastically. Mm-hmm. There are gaps in it, but we're working on it all the time, or the bit, when I can help out, when I've got time, that's what we're doing, and they're doing to try and get, and there's some really committed members on that particular committee that are looking to do it.
No, fantastic. So we'll sort of start wrapping up now. Darren, where can people find, if they're in Leighton Buzzard, if they're in Dunstable, if they're in Aylesbury, Linslade, Milton Keynes, because I know people travel for the club.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a current member, but I know Steve, who travels from this town, Aylesbury, to the club in the morning.
I mean, we have people from all round, as you say, Milton Keynes, Stoke Hammond, Dunstable, Luton. We've got a club website, lbrcc.com. We've got a Facebook page. Obviously, just search us on Facebook. Yep. We've got WhatsApp. You can message me. Or one of the other committee members, just find us on there. We've also got Instagram as well, which is Team Green, LBRCC. So I think just do a search on your favourite search engine, and I'm sure you'll find us. But we're always welcome for people. Our policy is come along, have a few rides first of all before you even think about joining the club. Mm-hmm. Then we'll talk you through it. We don't want people to commit to anything, money and a bike, etc. Just come along and try it out. And
it's every Sunday 8?
Every Sunday at 8:30 in the summer. In the winter, sometimes we start later or don't ride at all.
Depending on the weather. I saw a few of those with the wind and with the ice and with the snow.
Yeah.
So that's by the Propeller.
It's the Propeller Memorial at the end of the town, as you said, opposite Dorvick Cycles. So, you need to look for a cycle shop, and 8:30 on a Sunday morning, there'll probably be anything between 20 and 50 people on bikes waiting to go.
All looking quite green.
All looking greenish.
Lovely stuff. All right, Darren, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
This has been the Road Ahead podcast. Stay tuned for more from different people in the cycling world, and thanks for watching.